I'm a 3D artist trying to learn how to do 3D art again. And the journey so far has been anticlimactic. I was actually taught in the ways of Maya, Substance Painter, and all those industry standard programs. But because I'm currently as rich as this photo here, I'm learning Blender instead. I have no clue if this is going to be a temporary program or if this is going to be a permanent program I'll integrate to my workflow. But that won't stop me because I do know that learning Blender will help me get back into the 3D workflow mindset. In short, it'll be beneficial to me either way. My plan is, in this really short series, that I'll show a time-lapse of my progress learning the famous Blender donut by Blender Guru. So yeah, now that we got the gist of it, let's get into this thing. The first thing I can say about Blender is that I struggled on the navigation keys. So I immediately tried changing the keys to how Maya function. I know that there's a literal switch button that changes every key to industry standard, but I didn't want that. The moment Blender Guru said he was going to do the rest of the tutorial using the Blender keys, I figured it would be more trouble than it was worth. So the only thing I changed was the navigation keys because, good God, the amount of minutes wasted spinning in the viewport. So going back to like a 3D program has been kind of wild for me because I haven't touched a 3D program in quite some time. And learning Blender is certainly new because, you know, it was just never taught in my classes. So it has been not much of a learning curve, but it definitely did feel like I was going home in a way. That's a little dramatic, but it shows the point. I had a lot of fun deforming the donut. It was a lot more entertaining than, you know, just bringing a tourist in and just figuring out the viewport. That was really fun. I should say that I want to go for a really fun donut. And speaking of fun, I really wanted to make this donut like insane. Like, I'm not going for like some basic Tim Hortons donut. I wanted it to be a donut that I don't think you should be able to eat. But, yeah. The icing was pretty fun to do as well. Once I figured out how to do it, it was kind of satisfying just bringing down like the drips and everything. And when it got to the technical parts where, you know, I had to smooth out everything, I mean, I guess it just was part of the learning curve. Making specific drips in the icing was definitely like an artistic choice. Like, again, I wanted to do something like kind of interesting, visually interesting. I think I made the icing like drip more than, like, it's very thin icing. Like the consistency, I guess, is not like thick where it would stay in its place. No, it's dripping. So here I was trying to fix the topology of the icing, but that's not the tutorial Blender Guru did, so highly do not recommend. So when it came to the sculpting part, I absolutely hated it. It's not that it wasn't fun, it was just that it really was like ZBrush, and fun fact, I actually despise ZBrush with my life. So it was a learning curve once again. It was kind of satisfying just seeing the donut like come together, especially when they smoothed out the rims of the icing. It was really nice. All in all, everything did prepare me for what I personally define as the best part of 3D art, which was the texturing. So, here I am showing off what I have so far. Clearly, it's not done, but this video is far from over. little known fact about me is that I actually do specialize in texture art and material shading. Or at least I used to. But that's the whole point of me doing a Blender donut, is so that I can remind myself and reteach myself on all the skills that I haven't used in quite some time. I was really excited going into this part of the tutorial because I got to revisit more or less some of the skills that I haven't done in a while, and especially the websites that I haven't searched up in a bit. So I visited a long list of websites that I used to collect textures from. Without much explanation, I chose a volcano floor rather than a kitchen countertop because, once again, I'm going for interesting and maybe unconventional, one could say. This part generally gave me some flashbacks because working in a node-based system is something I haven't done in a while, but I have done a lot in my limited experience of doing 3D art. I admittedly am still not the best at material shading or this type of workflow, but I do hope that I can get at least somewhere with my skills. I do want to get to the point where I'm able to make the art that I do see in my head, and that just comes with learning this type of program, learning this type of workflow. So it really is a bit of a learning curve when it comes to material shading graphs and all that stuff. So we actually reached the part of the video where I was experimenting on different types of sprinkles because for some reason Suzanne was just not working anymore. I mean, she was still on my donut, but because I was following a tutorial and Blender Guru uses two types of sprinkles, I therefore had to work my way around it per se. I still wanted to do something interesting and something non-conventional, so I decided to let's put a bunch of Cheerios on my donut. And then for my second sprinkle, I was thinking of just doing one elongated Cheerio, cause that sounds delicious. But, I reached the point where I realized what wasn't working with Suzanne, which was the randomizer, was actually working. And so I was really, really happy when I saw that all of the little monkey heads were just different colors, which basically what I was going for. Originally I was going for Starburst colors, something like that went in collage with my really somewhat saturated honey yellow icing. It's supposed to be honey flavored, by the way. But anyways, I really liked the colors that I kind of had. It was I would not eat this, but it definitely does look interesting. And so I settled. But my favorite part was definitely when I added some sort of metallic sheen on sprinkles. It's definitely not something you'd see in real life, but I was taking some artistic liberties, that's for sure. So when I began modeling the plate, I was quite frustrated. It was partly because I was still getting used to the Blender controls, and I'm not that great of a modeler. I can model, but it's not anything others can do. Yet. But anyways, I was also following what Blender Guru suggested, and that was to try and model this plate by myself. And so I definitely did model it by myself a few times. And I ran into a lot of mistakes. It was here where, I was reminded like being an artist is really difficult sometimes. I was making a lot of mistakes I thought was quite beginner level, which was making me feel a lot more frustrated again. But I tried to push through. I reminded myself of what not to do, trying to increase the poly count, and then eventually I did manage to finish the plate. I probably did the plate like 5 times until I was satisfied. But yeah, after the whole plate fiasco, I finally managed to reach more interesting parts, in my opinion, which was doing the layout and perfecting the camera angle. It was at this point in the tutorial where I was getting really exhausted, and I was really struggling on trying to find my motivation to continue, which I guess is a very common feeling for our artists to have. But I pushed through. I was really going off on my own choices at this point. I was more or less following what the tutorial was doing now, because in the video, clearly there's like 7 stacks of donuts. I really just wanted to stick with 2. I just thought that would have been easier for me at that point. Still, I would probably say that laying out the donuts and doing the camera angles was still fun. I was just getting super burnt out, and it was going on way longer than I would have liked. But that's just how it goes, I guess. Here, I was struggling on having the second donut have a different color other than red velvet, seeing how I made it have darker icing rather than yellow. But for some reason, it just wasn't cooperating, which, was a bit of a pain. But somehow, I managed to make it work. So, yeah. And just as I was burning out, I thankfully reached the lighting part of the tutorial, which definitely re-energized me for a bit, because not only do I love texturing, but I absolutely love lighting in 3D art. It was so satisfying seeing how the light comes together and reflects off the objects that I made. My motivation to finish this tutorial returned completely the moment that I started doing the background. Once again, I'm doing not a kitchen countertop scene, but for some reason a volcanic island. And I completely enjoyed it. Unfortunately, because I was doing my own thing at this point, I couldn't really depend on Blender Guru to get me everything. Of course, I was still following his tutorial, but it was at this point where I was kind of just winging a lot of parts. I had to go to the internet and find some answers myself, which was really helpful. I was really enjoying myself as I was playing an orange area spotlight and bringing in models from free3d.com. It was really fun just trying to make the scene come together. I even went to Krita to try and see if I could add some lava effects just really quickly. It's like not the best, but like I was just trying to make it better than it could be as a beginner in Blender. Well, I think that I achieved a lot of things. I especially loved how the orange definitely glowed on the rocks behind. One issue I did have though was that the background image was definitely blocking the sunlight. And so I had to cut half of that in order for the sunlight to really shine through. There could have been some improvements, as always, but for what it was, and as somebody who's never really touched Blender before, I was really satisfied with how everything was coming together. And just like controlling the sun and like really seeing how like everything reflected was really nice. I was feeling so good about myself at this point where I was like, okay, you know what? Let's put some animation. And originally I wasn't going to put any animation, but here I was, wanting to put something really simple. But once I had that done, I basically had everything finished. All that was left to do was finally render. Holy shit, we made it to the end of the video. This was such a long tutorial to record and an equally long video to edit. But despite the ups and downs, I really am happy with the results of my donut. Anyways, if you liked what you saw, definitely like and subscribe. Or else you'll definitely eat a donut like what I modeled in the future. Okay, bye!